Hey guys, in today's video, I'll be talking about how to find a Ctene or Lib Mule. This is how I personally do it, but feel free to adjust it to your needs or liking. This is also going to be a very long video, so sit back and relax. As someone who has 11 Lib Mules and 3 more on the way, I feel like I'm a good candidate to talk about this subject. First of all, let's talk about what is a Ctene or Lib Mule. So when I talk about a Ctene meal, it's a meal that can comfortably solo Ctene bosses in a reasonable amount of time. That reasonable amount of time is up to you. For example, my link can solo these 3 bosses in 1 hour. It's roughly 45 to 50 minutes if you want a more exact estimate. For me, I don't personally mind that. And these are my link's stats. If it's too slow for you, you may have to adjust your fundings, such as push more 21s or push arcanes. Maybe even push hexa. For me, I'm fine with the 1 hour Ctenes. But of course, you'll be soloing Lubil, Sea Slime, Parlomian also. If you can solo Ctene fine, then these will be a breeze. This will obviously take over 1 hour for everything in total. But I'm talking about Ctene alone, it's about 1 hour. Again, if it's too slow for you, then you have to find it some more. You can also duo these bosses if you want to cut your time in literally half. But I just do it because the convenience and more mezzos, and also the solo loot. For the Lib Mule part, you have the option to live much easier than before, as you don't even need to clear Black Mage anymore. But it will definitely speed things up. This will, however, require a bit more funding than the conventional Ctene meal, as you will have to solo and duo the last 3 bosses. You will need someone to be on the same mission as you too, of course. Here is my recently libbed arc. The reason why you want to lib is it makes your character a whole lot stronger for the weekly bosses you're already doing. For me personally, I end up around 60-70 mil pre-lib for my meals, and around 90 to 100 mil after libbing. Libbing gives a nice boost in damage. Gives you 10% FD passively just having the weapon on. And it also completes your 4-set CRA set because it is a lucky item. So you do get an extra 30% boss, as well as a free 10-second iframe. The next topic I want to talk about is when to make a Ctene meal or a Lib meal. I'll preface this by saying that I don't want to tell anyone how to play this game, but it's just my advice. I will start making Ctene meals once you can do Kalos and culling. This can be easy Kalos and culling, because you do get these like half frags still. If you can do Kalos, you can definitely do culling, but culling you do need a bit more sack. This will, however, take you 20 weeks to get an eternal piece, like I have here. But at least you can start getting them. Ideally, you do normal for the 4 piece, but that is a bit more funding. This Kinesis, for example, I do normal Kalos and easy culling, and that's fine for me. The reason why I say make a Ctene meal this late in the game is because libbing will still take a long time to do, even if your main is not libbed already. You're sort of time gated since you can't really rush the energy, even if you solo all the bosses every week for the max amount of points. If you do e-Kalos and e-culling, for example, you can at least start getting half pieces per week for your Eternals. And the barrier of entry is pretty easy, it's just learning about new mechs. The easy mode variant is pretty easy to learn, and more forgiving. Normal is a slight jump, but at least you can get your foot in the door. If you are at this point in the game, your bossing below this point will be easy for you, even if you solo or do everything below Black Mage. And you can funnel all your resources, such as mezzos, cubes, and flames, into your second main or Ctene meal or whatever you're making. Also at this point, your main should be at a decent spot in hexa wise, as well as node wise. Your nodes should be max or close to max. Besides the descents, these you don't really need to max out, it's just extra stats. Now let's talk about why you want to make a Ctene meal. I do have a spreadsheet of my weekly boss income. There is a video I can link below. if you solo Ctene and below for the max 14 crystals, you can make roughly 5.8 bill per week per character. And that's with easy colors and culling and soloing Ctenes. If you do e-colors and e-culling Saren, and you dual Ctenes but solo everything else, that's still 4.8 bill a week. So it's a big jump of income. But for Ctene meal, let's say you're not doing Saren, you're doing hard Ctene and let's say Sea Slime, and then you solo Luo and Lomian. That's still roughly 4 bill a week for a Ctene meal or Lib Mule. And that's one character. That's way better than the normal Lomian, which is only 1.4 bill a week. It does require more funding, but this is about the long term. So you can snowball this from 5 bill for one meal, then this turns to like 10 bill for a second meal, 15 bill for next meal, and so on. And each time will be easier and easier because your previous meals will make more mezzos for you to fund the next one. It gets easier and easier. My sheet isn't exactly updated, but I do carry a lot of people, so I do lose a lot of money. But even then, I make roughly 46 bill a week in just bossing. This is my Cadena, for example. Like, I do colors culling, and I do everything else because I just carry. But even then, my solo mezzos is 3.9 bill on my Cadena. And this is the high end of the spectrum, because I have been playing for many years, and I have a lot of meals. The next couple topics are in no particular order, but I'll just go through them. First, you want to find a class that fits your playstyle. You can watch YouTube videos and pick a class you like for aesthetics or damage or a mix of both. Do not watch tier lists because they are subjective, and they're always changing with the meta. You have to decide who you want to play. Everyone has a different playstyle. If you like being lazy and mobiling classes, you could pick like Bowmaster. If you like to mash multiple buttons, there's a lot of classes for that, such as Sia. Or if you want big damage and something relatively easy to play, there's Night Lord. Remember that you will be bossing on this character for a very long time. It is a lot of time and investment, so make sure it's something you like and not something someone else likes or recommends, because it is your character. For example, Nalor does a ton of damage, but if you don't like thieves, there are a lot of other options. If you like warriors, well, there's a hero that plays pretty similar. If you like pirates, there's a buck, and so on. There are a lot of videos out there. My favorite place to go is to go on Twitch and target to streamers that play the actual class, either as a main or a boss meal, and get their opinions. You can also ask your guildies or friends in Discord to see if it's something that fits your needs. There is a Discord below for Legion, but you can't use it for finding your class Discord. So let's say Pathfinder. There is a Pathfinder Discord and a quick area for infographics. And of course the doc. And that's for every class. Since I'm already in the Pathfinder Discord, you can see certain info about just the class. For example, in the future when we get M3, M4, you will need a cooldown hat for Pathfinders. That's something only like Pathfinders would know. And over here I found the Pathfinder doc. So here's a guide just for Pathfinders. It has all the breakdowns and everything. What passives you want, what stats you want, the links, the Legion. You get the point. So make sure you join that Discord to find your class and to see if it's a perfect fit for you. Joining your class Discord has huge benefits. It shows you your bossing rotation, farming rotation, how to burst, tips and tricks, etc. I'll do another example. So let's say you're interested in Sia. So you can see here how to burst. And you can see if this is for you, like, oh, this is too many buttons. It looks complicated. You know, like, here's your burst rotation. If that's too much for you, then, you know right away not to make a Sia. But as someone who does play a Sia, it's not really that bad once you get used to it. It seems like a lot, but it's really not. But that's something you can ask someone that actually plays a class to know. Now that you have your mule picked out, let's talk about when to make your mule. So the best time is with a burning event. Currently there's hyper burning max and the item burning. I think this is the best time because it gives you a huge boost to getting started. For example, this Challenger gear is like super busted. It's basically like an arcane. It does last like a long time. So I can wear this until I get funded getting more gear, such as absos or arcanes in the meantime. It helped me clear hellux and things. So burning events come out pretty often, whether it's Terra or hyper burning. This gear is also very good for grinding, so if you want to grind, it's also a very good time. You don't have to fund your character as much. I will use my Sia for example. So Sia came with the battle pass and it gives me a big jump from symbols and selectors, and of course all the EXP stuff. So this helped me get a big jump boost of like levels and damage. So I am 254, but I've just been doing dailies really. More on that later. You see my 260 and 250 meals. I just do dailies and must park on these. I don't actually grind these. And this is the part where most of you guys are probably curious about. I am still in the process of gearing up my Sia, but I'm gonna pretend I'm a fresh 200 and kind of go about how I find a meal. Actually, let me get on a fresh 200. So this is my Corsair. So the first step is going to my class Discord. I'm not gonna do that because I'm out of Discord servers I can join. So here's the Corsair one. So I need 3 sets of tri-nodes. And of course times it by 2 because you need 2 sets of each. You want to throw in as many nodes as possible. The more the better. Just for this example, I'll just open up 40. And then you can find your boost filter here and just see if you have any of the tri-nodes already. So let's see if I have this one. I don't. So let's find the next one. Okay, so I have 2 of these tri-nodes and they're different. So I would just lock these and put them up here. And then I will see if I have the third one. Okay, I don't have that. So I got 2 out of the 6 tri-nodes. And then I would just enhance whatever I have. And again, the more nodes you put in, the better. But I'll go around trying to max out my ray nodes or the boost nodes to at least 15. But for me personally, I go for the max just so I don't want to struggle. The reason why you want to do 15 is 15 here and 15 here is 30. But if you boost it with the slot enhancement, they go to 5 max. So this 15 turns it into a 20, and this 15 turns it into a 20. The reason why that is you see here with the orange text, a level 40 boost node gives you an additional 20% IED. It doesn't show in your stats. It doesn't show in your stats over here because it is a functional IED. That's also another way to boost your damage for very little investment. For these blue nodes or skill nodes, I go for 10 to 15, depending on the class. If 10 feels weak, then try doing 15. Anything above 15 is pretty expensive, as in it costs more nodes to craft. But I think 10 is fine for the most part. The next thing I want to do is set up my links in Legion. This obviously varies per class, so make sure you check your Discord. Same thing with the links. For example, in my archer page, in my legion, I have a ton of crit rate. Because vicious shot, it overcaps a crit, and then half of that turns into crit damage. As for the hyperstats, this is a bit tricky. It also varies per class. Most classes, for example, you want just enough for 100% crit rate. But for archers, you want overcap, but you don't want too much. So you want to make sure you check your class Discord. There's a lot of variables too, because not everyone has the same legion or same links or the same artifacts. So you have to adjust accordingly. So this is my credentials page, for example, for legion. It is much different from my archer page, as I go for a lot of buff duration. I don't really need all these other stats, so it depends on your class. So back on my bowmaster, you see here I've got all the crit rates I can. Because that turns my crit rate into crit damage. So see here I have 153 crit rate. But then if I use vicious, I'm at 130 crit damage. Because it overcaps it, and then half of that goes into here. And that is archer specific. And this is my cadenas page, for example. It is much different. Again, it varies per class. You can optimize your legion a little bit, but that's a different video. Let me know if you guys are interested in that. And this also applies to artifacts too. Next up is gearing. For this part, I highly recommend you find someone to trade with. Or if you have nice friends, just find someone to just carry you. This will dramatically speed up your gearing for damage and overall character, for training and bossing. I'm going to assume you're naked and have nothing but penciliers, at least for this example. Before we get into gearing, one important thing to note is foddering. What foddering is it's transferring one item to another within 10 levels. For example, I can transfer this pencilier robe, and it is a 140 item. And I can turn it to my CRA top. So you can only transfer within 10 levels. Also a 140 item to a 150 item. You see here, this is a 16 star. So when you transfer, you lose 1 star. And you keep the first potential. For me, it's nothing. The second item, you see I have a pot, but I do lose it. And also, you keep your second item's flames. This is very important for foddering, as you will use it pretty often. Foddering saves you a lot of money, because these pencilier robes, you can farm them pretty easily. And my CA is pretty new, so I don't have that many spares. So I can just boom a lot of these versus booming a lot of these. Also, it's 10 levels lower, so it is a tad bit cheaper. And I don't have to safeguard these. There are other options, which I'll get to in a little bit. Another example would be like Kana rings. These you can like quote unquote get every single week. You want to transfer these into your sub ring in the future. I don't have any right now because I don't have the coins. But these are easy to get. You can't really rush Gullex, because getting one piece of sub gear takes about a month of running Gullex every single day. So it's a big time gate. You don't want to just raw tap a sub. Instead, you want to fodder something like a Connor ring or a Meister ring, because it is 10 levels lower than a sub ring. So if you have something that you want to fodder in the future, don't invest too much into it. Because when you fodder, you only keep up to epic at max, even if it is a unique or legendary. For this, I'll be actually using first. But in the case of the top, I would not go past epic on these, because it's just a waste of money if I tear it up and I transferred it and then I lose it. Next, let's talk about how I get these gear. So I like to set up my meals with my planner. So I have Gullex, Arcarium, and Pink Bean for my Sia. You can also add Red if you want to for more fodder for absos. Personally, don't do that because I have the challenger gear. And then the weeklies, whatever you can solo or get carried up to. For example, you want to carry them every day because you get a chance for the Dawn Pendant. The first one you will use, and then the second one you will use for a sub-pendant fodder. The second pendant you can use a mech or horntail, and later on you can use another dom if you have a sub-pendant, and then replace it with a daybreak in the future. Then eventually a source. It's a little juggle on the pendants, but you don't want to throw away these accessories. They will be farming here in the future. More on that later if you actually plan to farm on the character. For peak being, I do normal every day, and of course chaos for the weekly. Normal has the same chance to drop the same items, but chaos is much higher. The most important thing is the black beam mark, which can go up to 20 stars. It's a pretty good placeholder until you get a eye patch or a pap mark. There's nothing good in the meantime besides the, Zac eye. PP can also drop the belt or the sub belt fodder. And also a cup, which basically gives you a free reroll. I've improved my cups over time just by doing peak bean every day. For the face, there really is nothing that great. The only other good placeholder would be doing Commercy for the tattoo. But all you need is one. Just get one tattoo, which is about a week of Commercy. And just leave it 17 stars for now, until you get your Twilight mark. If you do plan to go the abso route, you can do Renmaru every day for the Japanese set. Every piece of item here fodders into abso, as it is 10 levels below it. Absos are a great alternative to arcanes if you don't want to go that route. And also you can only fodder into absos. Arcanes you cannot. Arcanes are much more accessible nowadays, but it is a personal choice. Just for reference, a 22 abso is about a 19 or 20 star arcane, or about half the cost. Something to consider. And then last daily boss I do is hellux. This one you definitely want someone to trade or carry with. It is pretty rough to solo initially, especially since you don't have any IED. Even if you do kill it, you want as high a drop rate as possible. So hopefully you can get some reinforce and sub spares for the belt and earrings. Drop rate does not affect the Gullix coins. Doing hellux every day gives you 25 to 30 coins per day. The drop rate increases the odds of the equips that drop. Hopefully for the sub gear, but reinforce is pretty good too for fodder or placeholder. And trust me, you'll need a lot of fodder. For the reinforced gear, just hoard them and just raw top them. Don't even safeguard. You'll save a lot of money. Next, I will talk about the other piece of gear in no particular order. As a side note, for the things that can be Starforce, I personally tap them to 17 stars. 16 is fine too. The reason being is, when you tap above 15 stars, you start getting attack with it. 16 is still pretty decent, but 17 you can safeguard up to at least that star, so I just go for it. If you don't have the mezzos, 16 is fine too. Starting out, there's not really many good rings. Just grab whatever event rings or horntail ring you can. So the best slot rings are Slime Ring, Sub Ring, Kana Ring, which gets replaced by ET later on. The ET will be a long time away, but it will replace this slot regardless. And the first slot will be a Meister or Oz Ring. For Meister Ring, you will need Meister accessory crafting to be able to craft it. You could basically craft unlimited amount of these if you have the resources. But ideally, your fourth ring will be an Oz Ring. And the ring depends on your class. In the meantime, just fill out any of your empty slots with any rings or event rings. The event rings initially will be used as a damage ring, but this will be a temporary farming ring, or it could be a drop ring in the future. This too will get replaced, so don't get too attached to it. More on that later. I don't want to go on too many tangents. We talked about the pendants already, but your pendant will probably look like a mech from Macarium and Horntail for a while. Then you replace Horntail with a Dom. And then you replace your mech with a sup. And that'll be your setup for a while. Then you replace your mech with a Daybreak. Then eventually replace your sup with a sauce. For weapon, you start off with Pencilier, and then you can fodder into your CRA weapon. But again, don't invest too much into it. You will use this weapon for a while until you get Absos. And then you can fodder your CRAs into your Absos. If you do happen to get an arcane weapon, you can swap it right away. But I will get to at least 16 stars to beat the 17 Absos. Ideally 17 stars, because arcane weapon is pretty huge. For the belt, you want to use any belt you can. Probably a golden clover or a reinforced belt for now, like I have here. And then you will get a sub belt in the future. And in the far future, you will replace this with a dreamy belt. For the hat, top, and bottom. You will need a lot of Pencilier spares. You will need a lot of these Pencilier spears to fodder to your CRAs. For the hat, you will need a Pencilier hat. And for the top and bottom, one overall is for the top and one overall is for the bottom. You do not want a abso top or overall. Just keep the CRA for a while. If it's just Ctene Mule, you're definitely gonna just stop here. As I mentioned before, for the face, there's really nothing but a tattoo as a placeholder. But then it gets replaced by a Twilight mark. And for the eye, just pray for a Black Beam mark. Then, if you want to, you can do a Pap mark. And then this eventually gets replaced by an eye patch. I forgot to mention that the face. So you start off with a Zac into a tattoo into a Berserk. For the earrings, you're probably going to use a Horntail or Hilla earring until you get your reinforced earrings. And then you use those until you get your sub earrings. And then you use the sub earrings until you get a CFE in the far future. For the shoulders, glove, cape, and boots, you will need a lot of Penciliers. However, for the cape, you can use the Tyrant Cape from Magnus for a long time. The stats are pretty good, and it is a good placeholder in the meantime. This will be the last piece of Absol you replace, and Magnus also drops decent boots. So the boots will be the second last thing you replace. They are fodder for everything here. So down here in Hellicium and the downtown black market, if you go to the Shadow Shop dealer, then go to the special tab, you see there's these antique boot gloves. They are 150 gloves and fodder into the Abso gloves. If you need Abso fodders, you can buy it here, or again, just do the Remaru every day for those spares. In Rudibus, there's a shop up here. Here's the antique shoulders and antique boots for Abso fodder. You should be doing CRA every single week, so these should be no problem. But again, Remaru also drops these spares if you want to do those. As for the cape, there's the Zac cape. Zac does drop the cape to fodder to Abso, or again, the Remaru drops all the fodders. Personally, I don't want the inventory clutter, so I don't do Remaru. I just buy them as I need them. And then I just hoard the Zac capes if I'm going the Abso route. And then if you're okay with Absos right here, you can stop. Otherwise, if you want to go Arcanes, just swap them out. I will stop at 17 stars though, and then swap out the Arcanes for the Absos. I will swap the Arcanes at 2 set, because you get the attack and boss bonuses. Any 2 pieces is fine, but I like doing gloves first, so I can roll for the crit damage and stats. And then ideally you have a weapon also for the biggest gain. But I would go with glove and probably shoulders. Because shoulders, you can't flame them, so you save money there. All you gotta do is tap it and cube it. For the emblem, it's just your normal 100 emblem. The badge, just get a Magnus badge. For the medal, you want to get the Monster Park medal. They did make it easier where you get 33 clears in every single day for the medal. Or 3 Monster Park extreme clears. It gets 10% IED. And then for secondary, it depends on your class. For most classes, it's P&O. But for example, for an Explorer Mage, you want the Deimos Shield. And you can also starforce those. Again, check your class Discord. For the heart, you want to wait for an event. For this current event, there's the Fair Heart in the shop for 12k Memento coins. So that's where I will pick it up. When you get an android of any kind, you do get a lithium heart with it, but I don't really bother touching it. It gets very little stats, even if it is legendary. And lastly, I want to talk about the totems. So in Guild Castle, if your guild has it, you can go into the guild shop. So you can buy these totems. They're 500 mil each, and they don't give that many stats, but they are perm. So in total, you need 1.5 bill, which is not that much money. And they do have a set bonus for 15 more attack. It's better than nothing, and it is free stats. It is just a meal, so, you know, it is what it is. I don't want to bother with farming the Yugoran totems, and neither should you. For starforcing, I mentioned earlier, I 17 star everything. And then I push 21s when I have enough spares, and if a starforce event is nearby. 30% is ideally the best for getting 15 stars. Or if you're yellowing your fodder gears to 21 stars. 5, 10, 15 is the best event for past 17 stars in general. But 30% is not bad if you're just throwing away spares and not safeguarding. The first thing I always go for is CRAs, because you're doing it every single week and you shouldn't have to safeguard these. Again, if you don't have enough CRA spares, just tap your pencilers into these. After my CRAs, my next step is I look at my inventory and I see what I have the most spares of to try and make space. Either if I hit 21 and I'm done and I can toss out the spares, or if it booms. I settle 21 on my meals because it's enough to clear everything that I need to clear, even Black Mage. Roughly the cost of 122, you can get 2 21s on average. What I mean is, if I 22 this hat, it can boom, and then I can spend more money getting back to 21 and maybe 22 again. But for that cost, I could just 21 another hat on some other meal, quote unquote, on average. But my experience of playing for like 7 years, 21 to 22 is a pretty high chance to boom. So for meals, I don't really care too much about them. They're just money makers for me. For Legion champs, I go for 22s, but that's a different video. If I have any arcanes, I'll tap those last, because they're very expensive. You see for my Dawn Warrior, I have 21s here. And then I have a 17 cape, because I just can't be bothered. But yeah, these would be arcanes if I had them. The reason why I went absos is because I never had arcane spares during my lib, and I just, you know, I had enough damage to do the bosses, so yeah. Next, let's talk about potentials. Personally, I go for legendary and 2-line gear. Or if it's still weak, like my Dawn Warrior, I go for fake 3 lines like right here. You can, however, settle on 2-line unique with the green cubes. So these green cubes, you get them from just bossing. You have a ton of these. So when you use these green cubes, they can only roll unique max. And if you have a lot of boss meals, these are pretty much unlimited. You see how much I have expiring here because I don't have any other characters to roll. But anyways, yeah, you can use these for basically like unlimited tries to get 2-line unique. Later on, you can decide if you want to go legendary 2-line or fake 2 lines. This also applies to WSE, your weapon, secondary, and emblem. This is where the bulk of your damage comes from, so I'll focus on these items first. So you can get 2 lines here, 2 lines here, and 2 lines here, and that's fine. If you need damage, you can go for just any 3 usable lines, like here, here, and this one. I just can't be bothered. Rolling 3-line attack is pretty hard, but 2-line attack and ID is pretty decent for emblem. If you may or may not know, you cannot roll boss damage on emblem. You cannot roll mezzos or drop rate on accessories that are unique, but I wouldn't roll the lines anyways unless you want to actively farm on the character, or if you just want the drop rate. But I would just use the drop rate on a junk item, like this cracked hellux ring. It's an item you don't care about. It's just only for breaking the boss box. You don't need super cracked gear just for breaking a box. But farming is a different story. Speaking of farming, I mentioned earlier how you want to save some accessories for farming. This only applies if you're actively farming on a character. If you're farming, the event rings are equal to about a 16 star starforce ring. It is fine until like maybe 270, 275 from my personal experience. And if you're still weak, you need to work on starforceable rings. Ideally 20 plus. 275, like in Shangri-La, I kind of struggle one-shotting, but it's fine for me. I only do dailies on this character, so it doesn't matter. So you don't want to invest into like double drop or a hybrid on these rings because you will have to remake them anyways. So an example would be like this counter ring. This is a hybrid with luckily a stat 3rd line. This one is fine. And I can push it to 21 if I need more damage. And I can farm these pretty easily. Same thing with the Black Beam Mark. 20 stars is fine. But a hybrid, you can invest into these if you want to. You can future-proof yourself by investing into better gear early on, instead of having a temporary fix, then redoing them later on in the future. If you are using it as a temporary farming gear, like a horntail necklace, only use it for 1 line, as 1 line is not that expensive. The average to tier up from rare to legendary is about 1 bill. Just for reference. As for flaming gear, this really depends on the item. It's really hard to say. Each item has their own like set of flames. There's too many items to go through. But maybe that could be its own video. This video is already long enough as is. Now let's talk about the investment part. This includes dailies, weeklies, familiars, and more. Basically, it's your time investment, mezzos, and whatever available resources you want to use. Most of your mezzo investments will be into starforcing, followed by cubing. This is totally RNG, but the more you put in, the better your odds. You will either run out of mezzos or run out of spares first. It is what it is. For your dailies, you want to work on at least maxing out your arcane dailies. You get 20 per day from each arcane area, and 120 in total for clearing the 3 of the weeklies in each area. Personally for me, I don't do the weeklies unless I can do 1 run and skip the other 2, which requires you to be 2 in the areas above you in the current area. So you get 20 symbols per day from the dailies, times 7 for the week, and you get 140 symbols per week from dailies, and another 120 from your weeklies. In total, that equals to 260 symbols in 1 area per week. To max an arcane symbol, it is cumulatively roughly 2700 symbols. So it takes roughly 10 weeks or 2.5 months to max out an arcane symbol in 1 area, if you do all the dailies and all the weeklies. This does not include the free event symbols they give us, or any of the symbols you farm. since we are talking about dailies, for my 250 Legion block or 260 Ctene or Lib Mules, all I do is the Arcane River dailies and Tenebrous dailies if I can, along with Monster Park. I don't trade them and it's pretty slow. You can speed them up if you want to farm or train, but I personally don't do that. The reason why the Arcane dailies are so important is because of Black Mage mostly, but also it makes Ctene more comfortable. If you plan to do Black Mage, you will live much faster and you have a higher chance at a ring box and arcane boxes. You basically need max arcane force to do 1x damage to Black Mage, not including levels. For the Tenebrous bosses, you don't need max symbols, but if you're at 1.5 times the arcane boss requirement, you do more damage. So you do want to max out your symbols for free damage, as the symbols itself also gives you free stats. For the weeklies, this only applies to the arcane weeklies, but this can also apply to the Scrapyard and Dark World Tree weeklies for absos. You only really have to do it for the early stages for the Scrapyard and Dark World Tree, or if you have friends that you can trade with, or you know, find someone to carry you for a blue dot, you can get potentially free boxes if you can at least 5%. Make sure you communicate with your carry and do a BA to make sure you hit the threshold. Here's a chart for the threshold. I didn't mention familiars earlier, but this is a huge RNG and long-term investment. But if you do plan to play the character for long term, you do want to try and get some boss fams on it, as it is a huge damage boost. I have mules with and without boss fams, and it is a dramatic difference with the ones with boss fams. Besides drop fams, any fams with drop rate is pretty nice too for farming or breaking boss boxes. ID fams are really good early on too, since you have like nothing. You can get ID from these white cards too, the common cards. I don't have any on my Sia right now, but I've been farming on my Cadena. If your main is high level, you can get 10 badges pretty easily. So on my main, my Cadena, I just farm the last badges, and then a couple of these, and then I go for the mineral badge for the extra IED. And those are pretty easy badges to farm, and it gives pretty decent stats. If you're much lower, you may have to do like lower badges like starter badge, snowflake. But all you need is 10 badges and you unlock your third slot. It's pretty huge for an extra healing fam or drop fam when you're like bossing. And your second hugest investment is nodes. As you know, nodes aren't easy to get. You can only get these from farming and certain events, but very little. Nodes are a very valuable resource, and you should only invest into characters you really want to play. It's basically free FD or free damage. You see here like Raze maxed out on 20% FD, so it's more than double my damage just by being maxed out. Alright, this video is already very long, so let's wrap things up. Good thing there's timestamps for you guys. I've been recording for 2 hours already, but you guys don't care about that. Next I want to talk about joining a guild. Most guilds are fine nowadays, but anything with 15 is fine. Which means 50% in boss, 15% in crit damage and damage. We do have the update where we can pop G skills every 5 minutes, so damage should not be an issue. And besides these guild blessings, there are other perks to joining a guild. So this guild blessing gives you 30 attack and magic attack for 30 minutes. You also get 30 arcane force, 13 attack and magic attack, and more damage to normal monsters. You can also use the guild to network either in game, from lines, or from guild discords. Most guilds have a spot for chatting or joining roles for bosses, or even boss recruitments. It's all about networking. You can also use this spot to find someone to trade with. The stronger you are, the faster the carries will be on both ends. If you can trade a, let's say, 15-minute H-Lomian, you carry them for 15 minutes for Lotus and Damien, and then you get carried for 15 minutes in Lotus and Damien. You get them your drops on their mules, and they give you your drops on your mule. That's kind of how trading works. If you still need the item, like let's say you need a Zerk, make sure you communicate that. I shouldn't have to say it, but just in case. Even if you don't get a Zerk, it is still worth doing the bosses for trades, for ring boxes. And that's for any boss. And one last thing I want to mention is possibly make a mule from the same faction as your main. As in, if you play a hero, maybe make another explorer such as a bowmaster or something. This won't really matter that much in 6 months when we get the universal cash shop. But for now, maybe something to consider. You can share your annexing pets through your whole account later on. That way you can mill around your pets with auto buffs, auto feed, and save a ton of money. Although you do have to remember to transfer your pets to cash shop every time. But at least you only have to invest into one pet. There is a ton of things I can't say, but I think I broke down most of the key points of me finding my characters from nothing to Ctene, and gave you guys some insightful tips. If you guys like this video or found something useful, please leave a like and subscribe. If you guys have any more tips, please leave it below. And I'm sure I missed a ton of things. Anyways, good luck, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.